Tea Party, some of the Tea Party activists say they want to have a right-to-work proposal on next November's ballot. Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, you know, as you know, I've said, and I'll say again, these are not the time for those kind of ideas. We've just gone through a tough election, people all stirred up, and you know, the system has to quiet down, and I just don't think this is the time for that.
If somebody was overpaid on the for welfare benefits and it was not their fault, it's the fault of the state, within the last 10 years, will they be required to pay?
You know, I don't know where that all stands right now, Joe. My feeling would be, let me tell you what I would say, no. Okay, that's my feeling on it. Now, I don't know what the federal rules are. Scott? Have we ever figured out if the state is responsible for overpaying, we go back to these folks? Have we dealt with that particular provision?
More than 10 years, except for fraud.
Right, no.
Walking away from. There have been some folks that have actually paid us.
Yeah, they were going to refund their money.
We're going to refund that money.
But what about when the state you know, let me tell you, Joe, I don't have the answer for that right now, but I'll give you my sense. When a government overpays somebody, that for the government then to go back and punish somebody who they overpaid, that's the ultimate bureaucratic blunder. And I wouldn't favor that. But what I will tell you is there are many federal rules and regulations. If only they would set us free, it would work out better. But my feeling is, isn't it typical of the government that they make a mistake and then they blame you for it? I mean, it makes no sense at all. So we will deal with this in an appropriate way, but that's my philosophy. If the government screws up, it's their fault. And you've got to hold people accountable who do it.
Did you say, when you were talking about this earlier, were you inferring that you didn't know that this was happening in your JFS department until recently?
No, I can tell you that this was something, the policy changed in December. And what we have instituted inside the administration is a process of, to tell you the truth, of yellow and red. Risks that bureaucracies could potentially experience so that we could get ahead of this. I'll tell you honestly, I was very unhappy we didn't get ahead of this. And this is something where, you know, when you deal with bureaucracies, you have to constantly work to rein them in. Now, I can remember saying something about the last administration, and Laura here corrected me and said, John, there's going to be things that are going to, that was before I was governor, now she calls me governor. She said there are going to be times when things are going to happen in your administration that you're not going to know. I mean, we had it with the umbrellas, okay? I mean, it's 55,000 people. We work with our directors. Our director there was disappointed this happened. And sometimes things get put into place. So the honest answer is, when I saw it, I was upset I was not told about this policy. And secondly, when I saw it, I said, we're changing the policy, plain and simple.
Governor, on collateral sanctions, are you talking about supporting some kind of new legislation or making administrative rules changes, or what?
Look, we've got everybody from Shirley Smith there today who's as passionate about collateral sanctions and getting rid of the box. And one of the things we're going to do in the state of Ohio is we're going to get ourselves in a position where instead of the box automatically disqualifying you in the state of Ohio, we're going to take a good look and dig a little deeper and give people a chance, because that box is a big problem. And I told Shirley today when I spoke that, you know, hey Shirley, we're not getting rid of the box, so don't start criticizing. Criticize me, don't criticize the rest of the people in this room. And the fact is that we have prosecutors in that room who really weren't thrilled with sentencing reform and probably aren't going to be thrilled with this. The key is to find that, you know, I told them this morning, I hate baby steps. I want to leap across the room and get everything done all at once. This is a sensitive issue, and baby steps will be a significant improvement. And if we can do that, we'll be in much better shape. And I think as a result of it, we'll get some people together. You know, I told them this morning, we're not Republicans, Democrats, liberals, and conservatives in this job. If that's what you think we are, you're making a big mistake. I mean, any of us think that way. If we can get together and come up with a good policy that, you know, is good for people, it's fantastic.
Governor, what was the reason for the collateral sanctions to be put into place in the first place? And was it that the wrong decision when that was done?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I think, Jim, that as I think you know, you've been a long time observer, things go in waves. There's a pendulum. And there was a time when judges were, there was a judgment that judges were not being tough enough. So he slapped in the determinate sentences and limited discretion of judges. And now we look at that and say, yeah, some of this went too far. For example, how could you not let somebody come out of a prison and who gets a certificate and not be able to drive a truck or cut hair? Or, be able to go and remove asbestos. I mean, there are great opportunities here for people to reclaim their lives. Was it a mistake to do that? Yes. Sometimes legislation gets put in at a time when there's a political firestorm going on, and the next thing you know, there's some things done that shouldn't have been done. But now we have an opportunity to bring it back. See, I think you've all missed the story on sentencing reform. Gary Moore now has become a national figure because of what we're doing with sentencing reform. Being able to do community corrections where the public is safe, where people can be reintegrated into the community, is a giant step forward. And you guys have never really written about it appropriately. It's a big god-darn deal. Secondly, inside the prison, if you're a violent prisoner, we're throwing away the key and locking you up forever. But if you're interested in improving your lives and working your way back into the good graces of society, we give you a chance at that. It's called redemption. And I happen to believe it, and Gary happens to believe it. And what I told him this morning is, you've got to be careful how we do this. Because we can't have somebody get out and do something and the public there's a backlash. But if we do it appropriately, the public will embrace it. I told him how exciting it is to go to Republican dinners and speak about sentencing reform. It really gets them on their feet. No, in all seriousness, when you put it from the standpoint of giving people a second chance, people get it, and I think it's positive. So, Jim, there have been, look, you know the way it works. I call it the 60-minute syndrome. You see something on TV, and the next day you slap in the bill, and then things start rolling, and the next thing you know, it's all past. And so this is a chance to bring that pendulum back a little bit.
Well,
Okay,
question.
Do you have any idea of how many collateral sanctions there are
yeah, there's like tons of them.
tons?
Tons of them. I mean, we'll get you the whole list, but
Okay.
somebody told me there's like, what?
600 or so?
Yeah, like 800 of them.
And
And look, some of them, let's take a community college. If somebody checks the box here, I don't know that they would let a felon into this school. I don't know. Each community college treats it differently. And here's what I mean by this, so the public can understand. We're talking about maybe somebody who is a 24-year-old kid who received stolen property that put them into the felony category. Or somebody that, that did something that was not a non-violent kind of a deal here. We're not talking about people that commit violence against us. But people who make mistakes perhaps at an early age. And the best thing I heard from one of the legislators was a guy who, he committed a felony. He worked at the Cleveland Clinic for 10 years. They found out he was felon, and he was like a great employee, and they had to fire him, because those are the rules. Now, Mayor Jackson up in Cleveland has really stuck his neck out in trying to give people a second chance. But I don't want the public to get worried here. We're not talking about just, this is something you have to do carefully, precisely, and without putting anybody at risk. And so a guy like Denny can take a look at somebody's background. He has a right to know what the person's background is, but he then can make a determination. Does this person deserve a second chance? And I never even thought I'd talk about this, but my wife and I went to Rwanda a couple years ago. That's a place where 1 million people wiped out in several months. And I sat down with the women. It seems like it's the women that drive the most fantastic change. I don't know. I'm just reading a book on William Wilberforce and his battle on slavery and crudeness in Great Britain. And it seemed like the women, so much of the women were standing up. And it's the women in Rwanda that administer the justice based on how they sit down and they look at somebody and they determine what is this person's fate. And what we do by just checking the box is to say, you're out. Well, we need a little judgment in that, and that's what we're trying to drive, and hopefully we can get it done.
Do you expect this to be a legislative priority next year? To reduce
Next year? Oh yeah, it is the end of the year. I mean, maybe we can get it done this year. No, Laura, I would, first the process is they got to reach a little agreement, because you got a big room full of people. There must be, 125 people there. And if you go to try to find a DAS facility out on Surface Drive, it's a miracle to even find the building. And there's 125 of them in there, and there's ministers, and there's prosecutors, and there's Democrats, and there's Republicans. And if they can come with something, and it requires a change, we'll get it changed, okay? And I'd like to make some progress on this issue.
Hey, Governor, a quick comment. I know you're a big sports fan. Urban Meyer obviously coming to Ohio State.
Well, I think it's fantastic. Let me say a couple things. Luke Fickell, in the way that he handled himself through Michigan week, and then I was going to cut the Christmas tree down after the football game, and the players, their response was, we were focused on this game. The guy's he's a heck of a guy. From what I can tell, great character, great leader, inspiring these young people. They hung together. Was a fantastic game, And so before we get all revved up about Urban Meyer, we got to pay a little respect to Luke Fickell, and also to realize that Ohio State's been through a tough time here. But we're coming out of it. And now with Urban Meyer, he's Ashtabula. His wife is from, I think, Southern Ohio. He's got those Ohio roots. He was, it's an exciting thing for us. He's young. He's had success. I think when you look at him, and I have friends that were involved in hiring him at Bowling Green, character counts. Character counts. And I'm going to tell you, Jim Tressel has character too. He brought a lot to the program. And I don't know all of the details and everything else, but I think character counted with him. I know it counted with Woody. I know it counted with Luke Fickell, and I believe it's going to count with Urban Meyer. So wouldn't it be great if we could win, have a coach with character that guides these young men in the right direction? And it's an exciting time for us. But, it's also a new chapter. So, to me, I'm excited about it. I appreciate the legacy of other people in building a great program here. But I'll tell you what I'm particularly excited about Ohio State. Becoming a great university. Great academics. Used to be thought of as a football program. Not anymore. It's got great football, great basketball. We'll find out how great on Tuesday. Great football and great basketball. But don't miss it. Ohio State now is building a world-class academic program, and it's exciting. And maybe we can have it all. So, thank you all.